Can you put it on the other side?
All right, good morning, everybody. I am Marla Burke. I am in the New Orleans area, specifically Metairie, and I'm going to be facilitating today. First, I'll just go through some of the basic items and I'll read the land acknowledgement. Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. Wow, that was a very cheerful join us. Anyway, then land acknowledgement. Hopefully I have everybody represented on here. We acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of Indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the lands of the Tonkawan, Lepon, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and the Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and the Coahuila and Mojave in Riverside County, California. And I think also, is it Waccamaw in North Carolina, Teresa? I'm not sure.
You mean the pronunciation or the tribe?
The tribe, both actually.
Yeah, it is pronounced Waccamaw, and yes, they are from North Carolina.
Okay, wanted to make sure I'd added that. I didn't have that from previous, so I quickly added it this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through generations. And we also state our intention to continue that stewardship now and into the future. Just start off by having everybody briefly introduce themselves. I guess, well, I'll just maybe talk about the format, just a review. It looks like most everybody on here is probably familiar, but we ask that everybody keeps themselves on mute unless it's your turn to speak. There will be a list that I keep track of regarding the order in which people will speak, and I'll call on you. If you'd like to be on the list, just put one finger up and kind of wave it around so I can see it and add you to the list. And please respect, each person will have 2 minutes during their speaking time. Respect the person speaking, meaning don't interrupt. Try to listen, learn, and not argue. After the speaker is done, though, if you do have a question, you can raise 2 fingers, and that would indicate you have a clarifying question, which is you didn't get what was meant by a term, or you maybe didn't understand what someone said, and you're asking them to clarify. As we know, the clarifying questions don't require a long monologue. They're just quick questions to clarify. And if you would like to go on the list to speak more regarding that, you can indicate that by 1 finger. Only 2 people can ask a clarifying question per speaker. Okay, I think that is essentially it. Let's go around and we'll have everybody introduce themselves, and I'll just start by the order in which I see folks on the screen. Phyllis.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Phyllis. I'm in New Orleans, and I've been coming to Erace since 2008.
Great. Beatrice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here in East Point, Georgia. I've been coming to Erace since '93 when I lived in New Orleans. Glad to see everyone.
Welcome. Marva.
Good morning. I'm Marva. I've been coming to Erace post-Katrina. I look forward to these lively discussions, and I may say educational. I look forward to this discussion this morning.
Great, thank you. Nora and Vicki.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Nora. I've been coming for almost a year now. This is my friend Vicki.
I'm from Northern California, and I came a few times in the past. So Glad to be here with Nora in Austin.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Stanton?
Hello, Stanton, Austin, Texas. Been coming for about 6 months and good to see everybody. Thank you.
Bill? And Cindy? But I think Cindy's gone, you said.
No,
No,
I'm here.
Oh, hi.
Go first.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I can't see. I mean, I can see you, but you can't see us. But it's been one of those few days about the media in this house has scrambled. So we'll do our best to pay attention. Glad to see you.
I am Bill, Cindy's husband, and I used to do a lot of moderating. I haven't done it recently, but I plan to show up at the next board meeting and volunteer to be a facilitator.
Great, thank you. Louise?
I am Louise, and I have been coming to the Erace meetings for over 2 decades. First in Austin, Texas.
And do, and with more ways than ever to make it.
That's not me.
If you order now, you'll lock in your
I'm not
price.
sure who it is. Okay, thank you, Louise.
Order yours today.
Teresa?
I'm Teresa. I've been coming for a couple of months and I am in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Great, Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm in Austin, Texas as well, and I've been coming since about the summer of 2020. So, enjoying seeing everybody today.
Welcome. Larry?
Good morning. I'm Larry. I'm in New Orleans. And I started with Erace back around 1995. And I remember some of the old days at the Gentile Library when we had so many people, we had to break up into groups. But good to be here this morning.
Welcome. All right, Cheryl.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to be with you all. I missed you. I probably will turn off my screen today so I'm not too distracting with Saturday things I have to do. Well, I love to listen to this subject. Thank you very much, Marla, for bringing it to us. I was introduced to Erace in 2004, and for the last couple of years have been coming off and on. Thank you.
Sorry, I was coughing and sneezing. Okay, Jean?
I'm sorry, I'm so slow. I'm Jean Walker. I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I've been coming to Erace New Orleans, I guess about a year now. And Beatrice introduced me to the New Orleans group, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Hey, Stephanie.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephanie Waters. I'm a grateful member of Erace in Atlanta, and I've come to Erace New Orleans a handful of times in the past, I think, year and a half, and I'm just so grateful for this group and thankful to be here today.
Marion.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marion here in New Orleans. I've been attending the Erace discussions since June of 1993. And for the life of me, I cannot get that doggone FABC Spanish thing off the screen. And my granddaughter's not in the room. She's the tech pro in the house. So you all know who I am. It's nice to see everyone this morning.
Welcome. Nancy.
Did you say Francie?
I did.
Oh, thank God for granddaughters, huh, Marva? Thank you, Marla, for hosting this today. And I'm Francie from Austin. I've been coming close to 2 years.
Great. And Teresa, you had a question?
I was gonna say, if you wanted to rename yourself, click on participants, find your name, and where it says, if you hover over where the camera is, you'll see a drop-down menu that says more, and then it says rename. So you click on that rename and you can rename yourself.
Too
You
many
see that?
directions, too many
Huh?
directions, too many directions.
I said it quickly. I'm
Hey,
so sorry.
I'm writing it in the chat for her, so
Oh, great. Thank
follow
you.
that, okay?
Okay. Oh, and it looks like Amal just joined us. He's connecting to audio. I'll give him a couple seconds and he can introduce himself. Welcome, Amal. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm sorry, I was still in the process of deleting some things off my computer.
Sorry, yes, I just saw you join in and we were just getting ready to start the discussion. I wanted to see if you wanted to introduce yourself.
No, that's cool. I'm Amal. Been coming to the meeting since 1997 and never stopped.
Okay. I'll just briefly let you all know why I selected the topic. I kind of like to bring topics to the group that might contain terms and things that are maybe not familiar to all of us and open the discussion up around said terms. And the main reason I selected this article is because I continue to believe, and I think we can all agree, that it's critical for us to have an understanding of intersectionality and how that plays a role in all of the topics regarding being anti-racist and what folks' lived experiences are. So understanding intersectionality allows us to have a greater understanding of someone's lived experience. And that's essentially all I've got to say for now. I can open the list and I'll start writing people's names down. And I think today I'll try to also do the timer. We'll see how that goes. Two minutes per person. Hopefully y'all can hear the timer. If not, I'll kind of interrupt with my voice. The list is open. Okay. Marianne and Teresa. Okay. Marianne, you can go ahead. Bill?
Okay. All right, I was, let's see, particularly, let's see, I'll say enraged when I read the article. Some time ago, it was this year, maybe late summer, maybe early spring, this white woman was interviewed. She's some kind of a politician running for office. And when this Roe v. Wade debacle was going on, she said to the reporter who was interviewing her, "Oh, I'm so glad that this has gone into effect because now we won't be losing so many of our precious white babies." And it's a good thing technology isn't such, you can't jump through the television screen and grab people around the throat. I said, how dare you? All children are precious. I'm talking to the TV screen. And I think it's because Black women are no longer enslaved. They can't be bred for having more babies for the slave master to work on the plantation. And I just thought it was a crass, insensitive thing for her to say. That the precious white babies, of course, all babies are precious, but for her to definitely say that, just signify all babies are precious as far as I'm concerned. And for her to say that, and it stuck in my mind all these months, that someone would be so crass and insensitive to say something like that. And I know I wasn't the only person that heard that. So I think this is one reason why, getting back on the topic, you no longer can plain Black women be used to breed babies for the slave master. And I think that's something that should be said. So I've said it.
Okay, that was the timer too. Were you able to hear the timer?
No.
No, and I even have it turned up loudly. I will turn it up even louder. Okay, Teresa.
It's a coincidence that this was the topic, because at the pharmacy CVS, we all work, well, not all of us, but people on my team work virtually. And we have these groups within the organization called colleague resource groups. So I'm a member of several, and one is the Black Colleagues Resource Group. And Wednesday, just the day before you sent out this article, we were having a focus, like small group discussion, and one of my colleagues was talking about how she was qualified enough to train other people who would then eventually be promoted over her, but then she wouldn't get the promotion. And when she questioned that, she couldn't even get past really her question, that what they told her, first of all, that it was her tone. And so when this article at the end talked about tone policing, we had already discussed that, and we had all like shaken our heads about, yeah, Black women tend to be direct. Not all of us, because we're not a monolith, but that's, you know, our culture, our habits. And so she was told essentially that because she didn't talk in a certain way, that was the reason why she could not be promoted, and that they had to work with her. And it's just amazing how you contrast that with, I'll say, another colleague who wasn't part of this group, who seems to have seamless second chances. Really should have probably been fired by now because he doesn't do his job. But, you know, you have this competent Black woman who can't be promoted but can train everybody. And so this article was talking about tone policing, and that was another thing that just came up. It's just like, she could eventually lose her job even though she's competent, because she doesn't speak in the manner of which is acceptable. And we were talking about how certain demographics have the right to be angry, and their voices will be heard, the content of their message will be heard, but you cannot be that angry Black woman and be promoted and be direct and whatever.
That was the time, Teresa. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Nope, go right ahead.
I apologize that you all can't hear it.
I can't hear it at all. So.
Can you hear
Do you want
this?
me, do you want me to do it, Marla?
Hey,
What's
Marla,
that?
I usually have to put it right up against the microphone for people to hear it.
Or I can do it for you, Marla. I'm quite happy to do that. Just let me know.
What, can you hear that? I don't know why. Yes, if someone would like to do it, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Amal, I see you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll have to test it out the next time before I try. Next on the list, we've got Bill and or Cindy, like one or the other.
I'm going to speak first. I have read many times that Black communities are over-policed and underprotected. And I remember reading when Kamala Harris became the DA in San Francisco, she discovered that when a Black woman was reported missing, the police was assigned no resources to the case. So she immediately put the priorities straight and started assigning a lot of resources if a Black woman was reported missing. But this is going on in New Orleans. There was recently an attempted rape in our neighborhood, and the neighborhood is trying to work with the police. The woman reported it. She was a Black woman. But there's the New Orleans NOPD has a sex crime unit, and they don't communicate with the local police. The district, our local district. And in the process of discussing it with some number of my neighbors, they said interacting with the NOPD sex crime unit is almost as bad as being raped. It's horrible. And a lot of women don't report. They said there was an example of 2 Black women sitting on the front porch, and a man came up with a gun and motioned them inside, and he raped them both at gunpoint. But they didn't want to report it to the police because they didn't want to deal with the sex crime unit. And so New Orleans is not immune to these practices at all. It's sad.
There's the
I want to ask him a question.
Yeah.
Well, how do these women know
I
if they've
see
never
Mary.
been raped before? How do they know how you're going to be treated? What is the known treatment?
They are very, it's known because of experiences that other women have experienced and shared with our neighbors. And
I see you, Larry.
they are very abrupt. They're not very helpful. And I don't know the details. I just know the experience was so awful. I didn't question the details, but the experience is known because the word gets around the community about how women are treated. Did I answer your question, Glenn?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Cindy and then Amal, Teresa, and Larry.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I don't have anything to add.
Cindy doesn't have a
Okay.
statement
on
at
the
this
list.
point.
Okay, Amal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking about something Teresa was saying as it relates to the tone of the lady's voice. And that's just a pretty way of saying that she doesn't sound white enough.
Louise.
We could see, I don't like to dress things up and make them sound nice. I just get right to the point of what it is. She don't sound white enough for them. And in not sounding white enough for them, it gets dressed under this disguise. Oh, it's your tone. Well, what is it about my tone that's a problem? And so there are Black people who go out of their way to try to sound in a manner that they would not naturally sound when they're around other Black people to appease white folk. So this Black woman was experiencing, I can't pronounce the word that's in the article. It's an M word, but I can't pronounce it. I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, but that's what she was experiencing in that moment. Somebody telling her tone is off and there's nothing wrong with this woman's tone. She just don't sound white enough for them. And that's what that was. So we don't have to say, we don't have to play that game. I don't play that game with white folks. I let it be known that no, I don't sound like you enough. And in not sounding like you enough, I'm deemed as unprofessional because the way you act is professional because it's seen as normal. But when I come with my tone of voice that doesn't sound like yours, then there's something wrong with my tone as to why I'm not promoted.
Next is Teresa.
Okay, so what Amal has alluded to is what we call as code switching. And we didn't bring that up in the meeting because we went in several different directions. But back to the comment about the police and Black women not reporting to the police. I don't know how many other people got sucked into the Jeffrey Dahmer series. I think it's Netflix, whatever. I'll credit or blame my nephew for why I was watching that. But he could have been captured sooner if the police would have taken seriously the report from the Black woman. And she's like, I can smell it, I can hear it, I can, she had the receipts and they still did not take that seriously. And it seems like she was also, I wouldn't say poor, but wasn't rich enough also to go over that barrier, because even if you're Black, if you have enough money, then the police will take you seriously. So that was also not taken seriously. But it's really funny because in the series, there were two white guys who wanted to videotape the building after Dahmer was captured, and the Black woman who reported him several times, her daughter knocked the camera to destroy it because it was a really emotional scene, and she was arrested. So that white guy only had to report that once. But her mother calling the police a ridiculous number of times didn't get any uptake on that. And that is another thing that scene really, I mean, you all know about Jeffrey Dahmer and it was horrendous, but just that microaggression of, oh, he can report something once and the police, arrest this Black woman for, breaking his camera. And that was one of the things where I was just like, boy, if I can go back in time and through the TV, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Larry, and then Louise, Greer, and Beatrice, and the list is open after that. Phyllis?
In the Jewish scripture, what we call the Old Testament now, there's a verse that says there was no king in Israel in those days. Everyone did what was right in his own eyesight. And then Jesus said in the gospel, what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? What will a man exchange and what will a man give in exchange for his soul? As Americans, we've lost our souls. And it seems like we keep creating all of these divisions that does nothing but create evil within our midst. Homophobic, anti-Semitic, or Jewish, racist, white supremacy, anti-Christ, anti-Muslim, health disparities, equity, liberal, conservative, progressive, right, left, misogyny, Black and brown, a protective class, and now, then the LGBTQ plus IA. All this is getting ridiculous. And now we've come up with another word, misogynoir, or however it's pronounced. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it. But I'm having an issue with all of this. And to be honest with you, a lot of this seems to be directed at who? The white male. And I could understand the white male's feeling that the whole world is coming down against him. Because that's not negating the fact that he is responsible for the historical status of America. But to say Black women breed, that's something from the 1800s. We don't breed for the slave masters. There are no more slave masters. We breed to have families and to have children. Thank you.
I think Louise has a clarifying question, and you are also next on the list, Louise.
Yeah, my clarifying question is, so you don't think these groups should have a voice?
How many more groups will be created down through the years?
That's not the question.
That's my point.
Do you not think these groups should have a voice?
Of course they should.
So why is there a problem? No, okay, don't go there. All right.
Louise, you're next on the list also.
Let me time myself. Hold on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for doing the timer.
Oh, of course, no problem. so it's just a very short little personal note that I worked with, because she no longer works at the school that she's no longer a teacher actually, but a fantastic young teacher, great teacher, wanted to do something, and I can't remember the exact details. It was something for Black Heritage Month, something, can't remember. Anywho, she didn't get to do it, and she came to tell me that she was sad she didn't do it. And I said, well, why didn't you? You know, why didn't you speak up? And she said, I didn't want to come across as an angry Black woman. And that made me so sad. And of course, you know, I spoke up, but it was too late. And not that I was, you know, hey, I'm going to speak up for the Black lady, but it was just sad that she felt that, and she was muffled because of that feeling that she doesn't want to come across as that. That's just, and that happens everywhere, all the time, I'm sure, you know. That's it.
Thank you. Greer is next, and then we have B, Phyllis, and Larry, and the list is open after that. Greer?
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. On October 6th, a woman escaped from this basement type cell that this man named James Haslett had created. She had been missing. She was a Black woman. He was a white male. She had been missing since September. And she finally escaped. She was beaten. She was whipped. She was raped numerous times. And if I recall it right, 2 of her friends didn't make it. My question is to you guys is, how many of y'all ever even heard of this story? But yet it happened. Okay. But it really wasn't played on the news. And just listening to what some of y'all saying, and we need to be honest with this.
Bill and Cindy.
Whites are taught to maneuver and to be able to discredit us. Think about Jeffrey Dahmer. An example. Why would a white man be living in the projects? Of all the places he could have lived, he knew if he was going to do what he was going to do, he had to be in a place where nobody cared, where even if people called, nobody really would show up. Everything is calculated. This isn't some arbitrary thing. There's been an agenda against not just women, against our Black community, man, women, and children since day one when we were considered chattel. That hasn't changed. It's just morphed with technology, society, and everything else like a virus. So, I mean, to expect anything else and people want to go, well, all lives matter. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Until Black lives matter, then all lives are never gonna matter to me, because everybody puts themselves first. So until my people are first and we start putting ourselves first and our lives actually matter, then all lives can't possibly matter. That's it.
And I think, Phyllis, did you have a clarifying question?
Sorry, yeah, I changed my mind.
Okay. Next we've got Beatrice.
I may have shared this experience before when I was working in Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland. There was a process called the Principals Assessment Center. And those of us that were selected to be observed to be principals went to this event, and where there were different experiences that you had that would simulate those that one might have as a principal, and you see how you would act. So I was in a group of people, and I was giving responses to something that had occurred. And the things that I said were not picked up on by the group. You know, I would make my comments, and then somebody else would say exactly what I had said, and would be, you know, that would be just wonderful that this person said just what and I kept doing that until I got to the point where I just gave up, because I could not figure out a way that would have an acceptable tone that wouldn't tell these people to go straight to hell. So I didn't say anything. And the administrator, the principal who was observing the process when this was over, she said, Beatrice, don't ever do that. Don't deprive them of your brilliance because you can't figure out how to say what you need to say. So that taught me something. The other thing really quickly, there's a hierarchy of who's valued in this society, and Black women fall way down. White men are first. They have the power, they make the decisions, and they can destroy or prevent from destruction those who are what's considered beneath them. It's unfortunate that the value of a Black female and what happens to her and who does what to her is not high. It's not acclaimed. And you're always questioned when there's an issue of morality. You were the one that was wrong. You're missing the same woman that Greer was talking about. People ask, well, maybe she's a runaway. How you know she's not with somewhere she wants to be? I mean, these are the questions that are raised when our people are missing. So I'm ending.
Okay. Phyllis is next, and then Larry, Bill, or Cindy, Michelle, and then Glenn, I see you as well.
Marla, I was raising my hand in response to I think Teresa or someone said, it was Greer asked how many people knew about a story. I wasn't asking.
Okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, so Phyllis is next, then Larry, Michelle, and Glenn.
Well, I, first of all, don't give a flying you know what if white men are feeling threatened by the rise of other voices in this country. They need to take a seat and start listening. As this article says, stop centering themselves or being centered by other patriarchal inspired people. And I say the more groups that show the beautiful diversity of human beings in our country, the better country we have. If we listen to those people and we don't try to marginalize them. Everybody has a right to their being, to how they were born, how they were created, how they feel about themselves, how they love other people, how they look, how they dress, all those things. That's the beauty of our country. And I don't get this hate and this, well, I get it because it's about power. I will say that, I do get that part. The conservative Christians, as we talked about last week, they want everybody to believe what they believe. They don't want to have freedom of religion. They want to have freedom to make everybody follow their religion. And I think they're going to be surprised by the uprising if they get more power and enact more restrictions on us, on our rights. Right now, women together, people are willing to overlook that. Men who worry about getting people pregnant will go out and have a vasectomy before they'll vote for women's rights. So, I mean, I'm just really fed up with the lack of support from white men, Black men, any other kind of man in this country for women. We're going to have to do it for ourselves. Thanks.
Okay, next we have Larry.
Yeah, I want to correct the record right off what something Phyllis said, and I thought I corrected that last week. Is there ain't no such thing as white Christian nationalism. You know, that cannot be supported by Christianity and the doctrines and tenets of Jesus Christ. I just wanted to set that straight. Second, Teresa kind of put me in a spot of answering yes or no, and that wasn't exactly a yes or no answer about people having voices. But the point I'm trying to make, I've used the example before of two rams who were busy butting heads, and they had a little baby ram by their side. But the two rams were so busy butting heads with one another that they didn't see the lion that snuck in and stole the little baby around. And all I'm saying is that we can continue to fight one another, and we don't see the enemy that's creeping in on America to destroy us. As Martin Luther King once said, we may have all come over on different boats, but we're in the same ship now. So we have to have a change of heart, a change of directions. This supremacist stuff got to go. You know, there's a whole lot we've got to work on, but we're 200 years behind.
Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michelle, then Glenn, Amal, Phyllis, and Louise. Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Greer's comment and question about that story brought back what my concerns there were, because I did, for the radio station I work for, I edit and help air the Democracy Now! Newscast, which is an independent newscast source, basically, and they covered this story extensively there. So that was the first time I'd heard it, and it just shocked me. I was just horrified. And so I immediately was like, wow. I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of news otherwise, but mainstream news, I should say. So I immediately went afterwards and looked to see if CNN or MSNBC or anybody had any kind of feature, or even the Washington Post or the New York Times. And I had to dig pretty deep to find something eventually. And so, again, it just, brought home to me, again, how little coverage non-white women receive in regards to these stories. And again, it just brought home my shock at the fact that that was just a horrifying story. I mean, the whole details of all of it, and the fact that, it's not well known by so many people in mainstream circles who consume their media. It just, again, just gave me pause. So just wanted to say that, through my experience as a white woman here.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Next we have Glenn, and then just for the list, Amal, Phyllis, Louise, Teresa, Greer, and Beatrice. Glenn?
I think universal, women are not taken serious when they complain of being sexually abused. You can go in the military, women aren't taken serious, no matter what color you are. Women aren't taken serious when they report rape. In the media, women aren't taken serious when they make a complaint. This guy Weinstein did it for decades to women, and women reported it wasn't taken seriously. They use an R. Kelly on this black woman, but a football player, if he does it, it's not taken serious, whether he's a football star. They don't want to convict him. So it's not just we may be having more of a problem, but it's universal, and it's not just looking at it as Black women are being victimized and not being heard. It's all women, Mexicans, Indians, everybody. That's my opinion.
Amal?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of times when we talk about how Black women have been treated, we use it in reference to how either white men have treated Black women historically, or just how men in general have treated Black women, Black men included. What I don't hear much of is how white women have treated Black women historically. And I think that's a conversation that a lot of times we don't want to have, because a lot of the the white women who were fighting for women's rights ignored Black women historically and what they were going through in this country. And so those same white women will get on the forefront and say we're fighting for women's rights, when you knew that Black women were being raped with impunity in the South at that time, and nobody said nothing. I'm talking about rape by white men, gangs of white men. And an example of that, there's a documentary called The Rape of Reese Taylor. I highly recommend people watch that documentary. And when you watch that documentary, you'll see how Black women voices were being ignored by the white media, by the white press, and so on and so forth. And if had not this Black woman spoke up, because she had the guts to do so at the expense of her life, that she was raped by these white boys, she would have just been another victim who lived with that pain. But because she spoke up, she was absolutely ignored by the white media, i.e. white women, the feminist groups of the time, the white feminist groups of the time, all of that. So we have to look at the historical relationship between white women and Black women and how white women treated Black women in this fight for freedom for women. And that's something that's not often talked about, how white women have historically treated Black women. I'm talking about,
I see you, Gene.
all the way on as far back as the plantation. I simply use the rape of Reese Taylor as an example.
Amal, I think that was the timer.
Oh,
Would you
that was
like
my
to
timer?
pick
Okay,
up
I'm
on
sorry.
the
I'm
list?
sorry.
I
Okay,
think
no
so,
problem.
Louise.
No
correct me
problem.
if I'm wrong.
No problem. No problem.
Marla, I have a clarifying question for Amal.
Okay.
Can you restate the name
of the documentary?
Yes, it's called The Rape of Reese Taylor. Reese is spelled R-E-C-Y, Taylor.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Next, we have Phyllis, then Louise, Teresa, Greer, B, Bill or Cindy, Larry, and then Jean. Phyllis.
Well, as I said last week, just because you don't like a group using the term that you use to describe your faith doesn't mean you get to say they're not part of that faith. The conservative Christians cite the same Bible as other Christians. They use the same language. They talk about Jesus. They may not be practicing the way you think they should, but there's people, they don't think you're practicing the way you should. There's people who don't think Mormons or Catholics are practicing correctly. So, and like I said, if Muslims can't say Al Qaeda and the Taliban aren't Muslims, then we don't get to say, anybody in this country who identifies as Christian don't get to say that the conservative Christians are not Christians just because you don't like it. And I know this article used more current examples of misogynoir, but I go back to thinking about what was done to Anita Hill. And with great help from our current president, Joe Biden, he helped get Clarence Thomas on the court, and now look at how that is working out for him. And also, I have a lot of concerns about our current mayoral recall in the city of New Orleans against LaToya Cantrell. I don't know, somebody who's lived here longer can tell me if there were ever recalls for white male mayors or Ray Nagin, which, I mean, lots of people didn't like Ray Nagin. But the fact that we have a Black woman who's the target of a recall, although they only have 20% of the signatures they need so far, I just question why that is happening. And plus, she's not from here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Louise?
So I have a couple of things now. Sorry, I don't think I pressed my timer. Yes. it's the, oh, sorry. The boat, the Martin Luther King's quote is an excellent quote. We're all in the same boat, Larry, for sure. For sure. All of these groups are in the same boat trying to achieve justice for everyone. But it doesn't mean on that boat you can't have, you know, a certain restroom that you need or a certain type of, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that you have to ignore your own fight, you know, that other people haven't seen or helped with, or that is not being heard. You know, we are in the same boat. They're not fighting or butting heads, as you say. You know, lovely little parable about the goats or whatever, but that's not, you know, that's not what we're saying. They're not butting heads. They're all fighting for the same reason, that justice. And as far as the, I don't know if you're aware of the tignon, the hair scarf. And to my knowledge, when I did when I was researching stuff in New Orleans as a tour guide, I thought it was from the white women who were jealous of the beauty of these Creoles and wanted them to cover up their hair and just cover themselves up because they were too pretty. And so they were made to wear the tignon, which became a symbol, of course, of their blackness. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And that's my time. Bye.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right, I took a couple of notes here because a lot has been said, but when you're talking about missing Black women, here's the phrase that you hear over and over again in the media. It's missing white woman syndrome. That's a familiar thing that you hear. And you hear something like Black on Black crime, but you never hear white on white crime. And that normally happens. When talking about who has the power or whatever, who gets the empathy, the phrase is weaponized white woman tears. And this is the reason why, even at work, if I disagree with a white woman, I tone police myself, because if she starts crying, I've lost my argument. I could be the most logical person in the room. And I'm arrogant enough to think I am the most logical person in most rooms at work, because middle management isn't there because they're logical. They're there to do the bidding of upper management. It took me a long time to figure that one out. So usually at work, I'm not perceived, because I know how to play the game, as the angry Black woman. I'm the opinionated woman. You know, they don't say my race, but I know I get that. You don't get just that label opinionated for nothing. They don't call it opinionated or whatever. But those are just my notes and reactions to what we're saying and what the struggles are, because when I have an idea, it's usually someone else who gets the uptake for that idea. And I'm saying, oh, thank you for restating my point, or I'm glad, you know, because I will make sure, even if they don't remember, oh, Teresa said that first, Teresa's going to make sure, and yes, I am speaking of myself in third person, that they know that I said the idea first, even if we scrap that idea, because it's like, oh, it was your idea. No, we're not going to do that. It's just like, that's your loss. So I'm sure we're close to my time, but thank you.
Hey, Greer?
I'm going to sort of piggyback off of part of what Amal said, how white women also do the same thing. And that I remember reading something about how they had to put protection laws against killing slaves because white women were killing the offspring of their husbands. So they go hand in hand with what we're talking about. And two things that it just popped into my mind. People are still talking about JonBenet Ramsey, and she's dead and buried. And they're still looking for Natalie. Mind you, I don't know if she's alive or dead, but you have 70 Black women, female children missing. but they're not getting that kind of press. And we talking about John Benet Ramsey since 1996 and Natalie Holloway since 2005. And it just was a little documentary on her on TV again. And also I want to talk about Lena Baker. She was executed in Georgia in 1945. We talk about a little over 70 years. Because there was a white man who kept kidnapping her to make him take care of her. He would beat her, rape her. Every time she would escape, the whole town knew what went on. We talk about 1945. Again, that's not long ago. She was executed for killing her abuser, but she was pardoned in 2005. My thing is pardon. She was defending herself. So pardon doesn't exonerate you from the crime. What she did was necessary. And that doesn't bring her back from the dead. Oh, you've been pardoned. Oh, okay, well, I'll stop here. But it's just astounding. That's all I can say.
Thank you. It's almost 11. We've got B next, Beatrice, Bill or Cindy, Larry, and Jean, and maybe time for one or two others before we close the list and do the wrap up.
This is Stephanie. I'd like to get on the list if that's okay.
Okay, Stephanie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Beatrice?
Yeah, I think that the term misogynoir is very important. I think we need a vocabulary that defines what it is that occurs to marginalized or aggrieved groups. I think if we just put everybody into one big group and try to define what it is that is their harm, we miss something. And while what Glenn is saying about the universal treatment of females, that is true. However, there is something that occurs to Black females that is particular to Black females. And I think we miss something if we do not identify that and name it. We have to name something if we're going to fix it. When Black children are missing, I've heard a conversation with a mother who said that the first thing they asked her when she came to see about her child was, do you think she ran away? Maybe she's with her boyfriend lying up. I mean, these are things that Black children who are missing are accused of and their parents have to deal with. That white children, if you say your child is missing, nobody asks you, well, maybe they ran away. And so I think we have to identify and name specific things that happen to specific groups of people and not just say, well, this is an issue for all females, or this is something, something that just happens. Otherwise, people are unseen, people are dismissed, and their circumstances are not handled. Their circumstances are not dealt with. The Tinyon was, I'm not sure if white women pushed it forward, but because there were so many Passe Blancs in New Orleans, people wanted to know that this was an enslaved person. This was not a free person, and that's why she had that on her head. And really quickly, when I was at graduate school, when I'd make a comment in class, the professor would go on and on and on, and then say, and as somebody said, and I would say, I said that. Beatrice said that. So it's exhausting because it's always work to be an African female in a white supremacist society. It's work, trust me.
Bill or Cindy, and then we've got Larry, Jean, Stephanie, and Glenn, and then I think we'll close the list after Glenn.
Okay. Briefly, this was so long ago that I was going to add this, but I'll add it now, even though it's late. I think one of the reasons to think about white and Black females has to do with who paid who. And in my childhood in the South, white women often hired Black women to take care of the babies, to cook, to clean the house, all those lesser things that the white woman didn't want to do. And I do think there's two reactions to that. One is that many white women in my childhood were astonished at how much could be accomplished by one person doing the work. And they weren't doing it. And that's, in a way, there's a double-edged sword to that. They didn't know how to do it as well. But, so there was an admiration, but also a kind of a put down that they didn't really want to do it. The other thing is the power structure of being the one to hire someone puts all the power in the hands of the white person, which I think if Black people who work as house domestics is a common phrase, if they demanded a fair wage, and I think that's beginning to happen, it might be different. It's sad. I also know a few families where the household help was very much part of the family and included in holidays, birthdays, etc. But I was worried about what happened to their family that wasn't at the quote the big house. So it wasn't a big house. Enough differentials.
Can I add one brief addendum?
Sure.
When I was a kid, my mother hired a Black woman to help with the cooking and cleaning. But unlike the other white women who hired her, mother hired a co-worker. The mother got on her hands and knees and did the cleaning with Viola. And Viola taught my mother cooking. And Viola was amazed that this white woman would be working with her. That was a good lesson for me on how to not be racist.
Thank you. Next we have Larry, then Jean, Stephanie, and then Glenn, and we'll wrap everything up.
You know, my mother was one such person back in the 50s who went to work for white women, cleaning their houses down on her hands and knees, scrubbing the floors, taking care of their children while she had to leave her own children at home after school, sometimes for $3 and $4 a day. No dignity, no respect. Little white kids calling her by her first name. And then what Amal said, I want to pick up on that, and Greer made reference to it. You know, this white woman's movement was not about Black women. They didn't pick up on none of these things that Black women were suffering and going through. Whether it was being paid almost slave wages or whatever else Black women were going through. And we can't, in some groups, some individuals, sometime in our lives, we're gonna suffer wrong. That's just the bottom line. And it might be an injustice. We may have to take it to court or whatever, but everybody is not gonna love everybody like they're supposed to. It just ain't gonna happen. I mean, that would be utopia. It would be good if it did happen. That is why Jesus died on the cross, in order for it to happen, but it's not happening. And until we can break through this barrier of hate, Marvin Gaye said 50 years ago, you know, what's going on? And then he said in one of his lyrics, only love can conquer hate. And we still haven't gotten it. We're not gonna win this battle. Hate against hate, and this group against that group. There has to be a common denominator, and I think it's love. I know it's love. Thank you.
Jean?
Yes, that Marvin Gaye record, that's so apt today still. I just wanted to point out that I think the most obvious area where Black women are treated differently and with disrespect is in the maternity room. We have more Black women who will die giving birth. Doctors ignore them. They have this perception that Black women are stronger and they can take pain. And I watched a show called A Seat at the Table, which is in New Orleans. Monica Pearson is one of the moderators there. And they had a husband on once. He lost his wife. She was bleeding internally for hours and doctors wouldn't pay any attention. And she died. she's not alone. You don't hear that from other white women, but definitely Black women have difficulty there. And here in Silver Spring, Maryland, where I live, we do report all children missing. I get a news, sort of bulletin almost every day. And not every day is someone missing, but in that news bulletin, they'll say someone hasn't been seen for 3 days or 2 days, or they give a description, a picture, and if anybody has any information to please let the police know. We do our best. I think years ago, Margaret was my supervisor. I can't remember her last name. A nice middle-class Black woman who went to the one of the department stores with her friend. They did some shopping and were stopped before they left and made to go into a security room and go through their belongings. And I know I've never had to deal with that when I've been in a department store. And poor Margaret, it was just a horrible experience for her. And you're right, until we all come together and love one another, it's going to be bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all your shares. I saw the Woman King last night with a group of my friends. A group of my Black female friends went when it first came out and they couldn't go. And they took a picture that said, Black women supporting Black women. And last night I went with a couple of my white female friends and I took a picture and I wanted to post it that said white women supporting Black women. And I haven't yet, but it's emotional. These women in the movie, obviously it's an all female warrior tribe. And it obviously shows about slavery and everything. And I'm so sensitive since, my sister was shot by the white supremacists. I'm always looking to see what white people are doing to support Black women specifically. And I'm constantly feeling disappointed. Most of the people in the audience were Black, not white. And I was thinking, this movie is incredible. It's so well done. Why am I not seeing more advertisements for it? It should be number one. Maybe it is. I think it's done well. But I'm super sensitive. And yesterday I did a college tour with my son and the tour guide had everybody introduce themselves and he missed a Black female. And before he started the tour and I said, oh, you missed this woman. I looked at her, I said, did he call you out? And she said, no. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. And then she introduced herself and I looked at her, I said, don't ever let anybody forget to introduce you. And she was the smartest one. The whole tour, she had the best questions and she had already been accepted actually and stuff. So I see it everywhere. White people not supporting Black women. Certainly have suffered in my own career being a white person with a strong voice, and if I put on top of that being a woman and then being Black with all the structural and subliminal and all the different elements of racism that still exist against women, I'm just really grateful for this article and grateful to be able to think about what I can do to use my power and my voice to support Black women. Thanks. I'll pass.
Thank you. Okay, Glenn, and then we'll do the wrap up.
Yeah, a lot of these police departments are run by African Americans, and some of them are run by African American women. In New Orleans, I got a son is a detective. Now, if you come there with a missing child, they're not going to send no detective out to look for it. I think they're going to wait at least 24 hours. And they're going to ask you the questions that they'll ask a white person. Have y'all been getting along? Have y'all been arguing? Have she done this before? They're going to ask them all those kind of questions. They're not going to go out there and just bust out there because they're missing and they might be by a boyfriend's house. That's remember, we're not dealing with 1940, 1930. You got these departments run by African Americans. And the majority of the people on these inner cities are African American policemen. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. We can start the wrap up now for the folks who didn't talk during the regular discussion. You always have the option to pass if you'd like to, but you will be given 2 minutes. And first on that list, I have Stanton.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to this conversation this morning, other than to say that if we don't recognize the other in ourselves, then we're all doomed. And I think man has always been hardwired to fear that. I heard someone say this on Bill Maher last night, the tribe across the hill, because that's what primitive people were afraid of, was the tribe over the hill, or the people within their group who were plotting against the group. Echoing a lot of what was said about dividing ourselves from others, seeing as ourselves as other. Again, at the end of the day, as long as we keep using words to define ourselves, I get the need to establish who you are and what you believe in. But when we stop seeing the other in ourselves, I think that's when it all falls apart. Thanks.
Thank you, Stanton. Next, I have Nora and Vicky. I don't think I see them. Do y'all? I just realized they must have had them.
It said that they left the group.
Oh, it did. Okay, they must have left early. Thank you. Next I have Marva.
I'm going to try and get my story in 2 minutes. They had a female surgeon named Rowena Spencer. I started working with her as a nurse aide at Charity Hospital. Later with her at two infirmary and pediatrics. I finished the 3-year program in a year and a half Arturo Infirmary RN program. Dr. Rowena Spencer encouraged me to go back to nursing school. I was LPN when I went back to Truro Infirmary as a nurse, registered nurse program student. A white nurses that was already was intimidated by her. They told me to call Dr. Rowena Spencer on their patients to inform her of a status change. And when she asked me, when did this take place, I couldn't answer her, and I put the white nurses on the phone, and they about crying. And they, when she got there, this would send me in the treatment room to assist her on procedures such starting an IV on the infants. And she would have conversation with me. When did this change take place? And I said, Dr. Rowena Spencer, this is not my patient. It's not patient, you call me. And called nurse in there that I assigned to her patient. And they would be trembling and crying, and Spencer would look at me say one going back to school for your RN, and she would quiet as kept, but she didn't want me to know that she was supposed to speak to the tourist and the ENT doctors, Elger Frisk in Zurich, and to them and arrange for my payments to the school, and I finished a 3-year programming in a year and a half. They would intimidate by Dr. Rowena Spencer. She was a brilliant surgeon, and I'm having difficulty telling this story because I have a speech impediment. I will not forget the agency group of doctors and Dr. Rowena Spencer. I worked as a RN 43 years. The respect that nurses got in the 1970s, they was used to nurses, Black nurses didn't rise above LPNs at that time. They had white nurses had no respect for Black nurses. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva, for sharing that. Sorry you experienced all of those terrible situations. Exceptionally, from one nurse to another, very grateful for your service. Next we have for 2 minutes, Francie.
Well, this has been an interesting discussion. I don't have much to say except that I've often wondered why white women who experience misogyny have not been more anti-racist all along. I don't understand why we fail to understand racism in greater numbers. That's all.
Thank you. And last for the 2 minute wrap up is Cheryl, unless I missed anybody else. Please call me out if I did.
I'm happy to say that I got a part-time job and I have a new boss, a very intelligent, vibrant Black woman. I'm really happy to have another Black boss. It makes me aware and able to work on myself to show and learn and relearn because I'm part of this society. So there's always work to be done. Misogyny is huge in our culture. It affects all of us. A lot of women are misogynists, white women are misogynists, and I find that to be a very difficult thing. And the only way to work with it is for us to work on ourselves, especially us white women, and to bring it to the attention of white males. I really appreciate the pain that was shared here. It was a learning experience, and I hope that these stories that were told to us now have more light of day, especially the ones that really affected our group and the pain that was brought to the great Black women that are part of our discussions. And I guess that's really all I have to say is I'm always looking forward to opportunities to make better change. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And we can move into the 1-minute wrap-ups. Glenn?
I wasn't looking for me to come on so soon, so I don't have nothing to say. Thank you for the good conversation.
Okay, thank you. Greer?
Okay, this was a interesting article. I've had experience on my job. I too am a nurse, but I grew up in a different time than my mother, who is Marvel. I know my job. When they come at me, they can't do what they want to do. One of my bosses told me once, and I had to shut her down quick. She was like, "Well, Miss Gilliman, I think you're being aggressive." And I said, "Well, I think you're being aggressive." And she said, "Well, perception is reality." So I had to look at her and said, "Well, in what reality is your perception more than mine?" And I stood there and looked at her and I waited for her to answer. Then everybody who was standing around basically laughed at her and she just walked away. After that, I had no problems with her. So we can't just be passive and letting people do things like that. You have to stand up for yourself. I'm standing up for all those people who weren't able to stand up for themselves back in the day when my mom was a nurse. Thank you.
Thank you. Beatrice?
I enjoyed the conversation. Good article, like the new vocabulary for me. The culture of an organization does not determine how people will be treated. African-American policemen are more likely, or more or less likely, if it's the culture is to be implicitly biased or prejudiced, or to see Black women as not as important. It doesn't matter who's in charge, so that we have to be aware that we can't expect that anything different. And we also need to be aware of the vestiges of slavery that follow us down through generations, and the treatment and thought of what Black women were is still in people's minds, barefoot, pregnant in the kitchen or wherever. I mean, we have to realize that that is a reality. And so, but I good, thanks for the article. Thank you for the conversation. Wish I could be with you more than twice a month, but it works for me.
Thank you. Louise?
Sorry, I'm having trouble doing the timing now. Hold on. Stop. Okay. So I guess just to conclude that yes, we're all on the same boat, but I really do believe that we need to listen to all of the different groups of all of the different minorities and all of the different needs. So yes, we do need love. Absolutely. All we need is love. Well, actually, that's not quite true. All we need is love, empathy, and understanding. We need to be able to understand. And if we don't listen to them, we'll never understand and never be able to fight together as one. So they're not battling each other. Sorry, back to those two goats. I don't know why. We're not battling each other. We're all together battling systemic racism and systemic sexism and systemic everything that is bad for this society. So all together, all for one. And great conversation. Oh, and Marla, can you please give me the name of the name of the tribe for North Carolina so I can add it to mine? Can you put it in the chat? Thanks.
Yes. Okay, next for the 1-minute wrap up is Phyllis.
Yeah, so I want to say, didn't come up, but it's mentioned in the article that white people have to really pay attention, and men in general, I would add to this since we're talking about misogynoir, to not centering ourselves in conversations about somebody else's oppression or the lack of justice faced by other people, or really any conversation. Just listen more than you talk. I want to say I agree 100% that white women are complicit in misogynoir and we need to do better. And I think younger generations, based on social media people I see, are getting it and are doing better. And women's work, what's traditionally been called women's work, taking care of the babies, cooking, cleaning, those are not lesser. Those are necessary for life and well-being. If you don't have good food and you don't have a clean house, all those babies are going to die, and so are you. And finally, I just want to add that Erace is a secular organization, and we need to remember that in our discussions and conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa?
Thank you. I like this article probably because I think it's like the sign of a healthy language in general is that you keep adding new words to reflect new consciousness, ways of thinking, philosophy. So I actually welcome the word misogynoir, expanding upon the concept of intersectionality, because the more we talk about this, I feel that that is a step in the correct direction. You can't fix anything if you're not aware that there is a problem. So I'm glad that yet a new word to even describe things that I remember from childhood, it's just like, yeah, I could apply this word, even though the word is new, the phenomenon is not. And it just seems so much more empowering to say, yeah, this is what happened to me and this is what I can call it.
Thank you. And next we have Michelle.
Yeah, thanks for the article, Marla. I like also being introduced to new words, even though in my early 50s, I'm already starting to lose my ability to recall words when I want to use them. I find that really sad, but nonetheless, I do like adding to my vocabulary for sure. And it's nice to be able to, when you can, or when I can, be able to recall them and use them, and then possibly educate somebody else on, the definition of that. So I certainly appreciate that. And my grandmother is she was in my youth, a great proponent of using correct language and also introducing me to new words, because I know she used to use them that way in order to elicit what does that mean out of me? Or to have me question. So anyway, I appreciate it. So thank you so much. Hope everybody has a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You too. Jean?
Yeah, I don't really have anything more to add. I appreciate the conversation, and I just hope we can all come together and move forward. Thank you. Hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and your friends and families, and talk to you next time.
Thank you. Larry?
I've read the Erace bylaws. There's nothing says Erace is a secular organization.
Yeah, there is.
And to make an attempt to shut out, religion or faith, then that you create another class that has to fight its battles. But just for something Sherry said, and I'm sure she didn't mean no harm, but when she used the term that her new boss is a very intelligent Black woman, some Blacks may take offense to that, because it might be sometimes like saying, well, he speaks very well if he's Black. She speaks very well. You are not like the other one. She's very intelligent. So this is just for Sherry's purpose. I don't mean no harm, and I know you didn't either. And who is to say people like Barack Obama, Tiger Woods, Halle Berry, Mariah Carey, Kamala Harris, Tracy Ellis Ross, Meghan Markle, Lenny Kravitz, who's to say those people are Black? Except a racist system. Thank you.
Hey, Marion?
Marla, did you say my name?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The transmission is starting to act up now. Thank you for this very interesting article. I thought about two little missing children and a young woman who died tragically, and it was both incidents were very tragic. And at another time, hopefully, I'll have an opportunity to share it with you. But thank you for this very, very necessary conversation. And I certainly appreciate everyone's remarks. So glad to be here today to have participated in this discussion. Thank you, Marla.
Thank you.
Everyone have a great weekend.
Bill and Cindy?
Discussion.
Right.
Earlier, someone mentioned love, empathy, and understanding would sort of take care of a lot. I would say we need to add the word respect, in that you can have all those things, but if other people ignore them because they don't respect them, we might as well not have them. So I would just suggest that we just need to keep in mind that we all have valid opinions and hopefully good ideas to share. It was an interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla, for the article. I just want to say briefly, I want to support what Phyllis said about the mayor's recall. Cindy and I campaigned extensively for LaToya and knocked on a lot of doors, but we have been very disappointed what she's done in office. But I think the recall is a racist move, and we do not support it. And most people I talk to agree that the recall is racist. Most white people I talk to agree that the recall is racist. So anyway, thanks for the discussion and hope everyone has a good week.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for your sharing. I agree that love is going to be what heals us, and empathy and understanding and respect only come from talking about it. So I think we can only come together by understanding people's experiences and listening. Tomorrow I'm having lunch with my college roommate, who I haven't seen in almost 30 years, a Black female. And I reached out to her just kind of when I finally came out of the dark about just the major oppression that she's probably dealt with her whole life. And I said, I'm so sorry. If I was so clueless in college, I don't know if I said or did anything wrong, but I love you and I'm so sorry for anything I did. She said, I'm sorry. She said, I was clueless too. And she said, I hate how it affected us. And I can't wait to see you. So I don't know what she means by how it affected us, because it was a long time ago, but I can't wait to see her tomorrow. I just want to cry and also smile. And I'm going to hug her and just listen. And I just have huge love, love, love and respect for my Black female friends, and sadness for what they continue to go through. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. And Amal, your last on the wrap-up list? Hopefully I didn't miss anybody.
Great article. I'm all for new words and everything, but at the end of the day, I don't have time to break white supremacy up into these little categories. It's like white supremacy is white supremacy, and misogyny is just another word for that. So I don't have time to break it up into these little subcategories. At the end of the day, it's white supremacy to me. I'm sure all of us are familiar with the book and the movie Black Like Me, when there's a white man who took some pills to darken his skin and he goes undercover as a Black man. What a lot of people don't know is that there was a female version to that same book, where a white woman did the same thing. She went undercover as a Black woman. And I think she said she went undercover as a Native American and Mexican woman as well, to see how they were treated in society. And when she went go and look up the book and read it and see what her experiences were like as a Black woman in this society. And it'll it'll give some more credence to that word misogynoir. I can't remember the name of the book.
Oh, what's the title?
I can't remember the name of the book. I just know that it's a white woman who she did the same experiment, and she took some pills or whatever and went undercover as a Black woman. And having done that, she chronicles her experience as a Black woman working in the houses of white people and what she had to go through doing so.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. This was an awesome conversation, everybody. I don't have a whole lot to add that hasn't been already said. I really appreciate those who highlighted the harm of white feminism in overlooking misogynoir all of the time and expecting that there is this uniformity of experience among all folks who identify as women, and that it just becomes this default narrative of the white woman, which is exceptionally problematic. I would highlight, I frequently work with or take classes from an anti-racist educator, Monique Melton, a Black woman who is just phenomenal in her discussion and her community. And one of her new classes is going to be White Feminism Ain't It. So I would encourage white women especially to take a look at that, because liberation doesn't look the same for everybody. And white women making this gross assumption that what we want for us is what is good for everybody else without even bothering to stop and listen is violent and grotesque, to say the least. So thank you to Amal and others who pointed that out about the harm of white women. The other thing that I think came up as a recurrent theme that I just wanted to address, which has also already been said in other words, why do we have all these different terms for everything? And I would just respond that we wouldn't need the terms if we would address the issues. You know, if we would stop and listen, like so many of us said, and hear what other people's lived experiences are, we wouldn't need a term to address the elephant in the room that's already been there for decades. You know, these things have existed for lifetimes, and it's nothing new. It's just now people are actually starting to talk about it and call it out. And finally, I wanted to also highlight just a recurrent theme that I see online and social media and so forth is this expectation that Black women should perform and give education and service without compensation. And I don't know about you all, but I'm over it. You know, pay Black people for what their work is, pay them a lot, pay them more than what you would normally pay somebody, and specifically pay Black women above all else. So that's all I have. Thanks all for a really awesome discussion, and especially thank you, Louise, for doing the timer that I couldn't figure out. I don't know why y'all couldn't hear it, but anyway, thank you. I hope y'all have a great weekend too.